Welcome, this is your movie gallery. After a boat accident leaves her stranded, an unconscious Jenn is swept ashore on an isolated island. When she wakes up, she spots her friend Brad nearby and rushes to him, only to find a large piece of coral embedded in his stomach. Desperately calling for help with no response, Jenn takes a flare gun from Brad's vest and drags him away from the shore. She removes the coral and covers his wound with fabric, but Brad weakly asks, "Did you see it?" before falling silent. Jenn believes he needs water and sprints into the jungle to find a coconut, breaking it open with a rock. However, by the time she returns, Brad has succumbed to his injuries. Determined to survive, Jenn begins exploring the island. Walking along the beach reveals that the shore forms a complete circle, bringing her back to where she started. Venturing deeper into the jungle, she stumbles upon various old and discarded items. She searches through a bag, finding medicine, sealed soda bottles, and other items buried under leaves, including a metal box containing matches, sailcloth, and a bag of toys. Her search is interrupted by a strange noise emanating from a hollow tree. Peering inside, Jenn is startled when a bird flies out. She later covers Brad's body with large leaves and prepares to spend the night under the sailcloth. As rain begins to fall, she sets out items to collect water. The following morning, Jenn finds the beach littered with dead fish and even a shark bearing horrifying gashes. She collects the fish, cuts off their heads using rocks, and stores them in a cooler for later. Sorting through another bag, she discovers a notebook with water-damaged, unreadable pages, save for a picture of a couple that deepens her loneliness. Further exploration leads her to piles of rocks and a branch cross marking graves, inspiring her to dig a hole in the sand for Brad's decaying body. She buries him with leaves and sand, marking the grave with a wooden plank etched with his initial. That night, Jenn hangs the torn sailcloth and starts a fire to cook the fish. The next morning, she discovers Brad's grave disturbed, the body gone, and the area stained with blood. Realizing something deadly is on the island, Jenn crafts a spear using a branch and rock for protection. She positions herself on a log to keep watch over the jungle through the night. Despite her vigilance, she dozes off, only to be startled awake by an eerie noise. She scans the area but sees nothing and assumes the fire caused the sound. The following day, Jenn spots items floating in the water. She wades in to retrieve them. While swimming, she dives to investigate the water further and is shocked to discover a deep, mysterious hole on the ocean floor. Too frightened to approach, she hurries back to shore with her retrieved items. Among her finds is a suitcase filled with clothes, which she changes into for warmth. That evening, Jenn examines the contents of the metal box again, finding photographs of the presumed deceased owners. Her quiet moment is interrupted by the sound of a plane. Grasping the flare gun, Jenn runs to the beach and fires a flare into the night sky, hoping for rescue. But unfortunately, the plane doesn't notice it. As the flare sinks into the sea, it reveals the shadowy outline of a tall, strange monster. Terrified, Jenn hurriedly grabs her spear and rushes to hide in the jungle. Soon, the monster steps onto the island, prowling among the bushes in search of something. However, it doesn't spot Jenn and eventually leaves without causing harm. The next morning, Jenn discovers her camp in total disarray, a mess clearly made by the monster. While picking up the scattered old photographs, she notices the creature's glowing eyes captured in the background of one picture. Desperate to escape, Jenn puts her life vests inside the suitcase. Then she takes it to the water. She drags it to the water, intending to use it as a makeshift raft. However, the suitcase is too unstable to hold her weight, and after several frustrating attempts, she angrily throws it back onto the shore. Before nightfall, Jenn decides to take shelter inside a hollow tree to sleep safely. Later that night, she's startled awake by the sound of the monster returning to the island. The creature begins inspecting her log, rolling and pounding on it. Jenn holds her breath and focuses on staying completely silent while protecting her head from the shaking. After what feels like an eternity of growling and movement, the monster eventually loses interest and departs. Over the following days, Jenn adapts to survival on the island. She spends her days fishing and her nights hiding in a hole she dug for safety. After repeated practice, she finally succeeds in spearing a small shark. Proud of her catch, she hangs it on a tree before retreating to her hole to sleep. However, during the night, she hears the unsettling sound of the monster stealing her shark. Not long after, the waves bring another body ashore. Upon inspecting it, Jenn is horrified to find that the corpse has severe facial wounds inflicted by the monster and is missing its legs. She decides to hang the body on a tree as bait and hides in her hole. This time, Jenn stays awake, determined to watch what happens. The monster soon arrives, quickly snatches the body, and starts devouring it. At that exact moment, Jenn hears a plane flying overhead. Though desperate to signal for help, she dares not leave her hiding spot, as the monster is prowling nearby. When the creature fails to find her, it returns to the sea, but the plane is already gone. The next day, Jenn constructs a hammock using sailcloth, belts, and rope. She suspends it high in the trees to gain a better view of her surroundings and to stay out of the monster's reach. That night, Jenn feels relatively secure in her elevated hammock until she notices the monster prowling among the bushes below. Suddenly, it begins tugging at the ropes, attempting to bring the hammock down. Panicking, Jenn screams and struggles to maintain her balance until the hammock finally collapses, sending her plummeting to the ground. Without hesitation, Jenn gets up and starts running as the monster chases her. The creature alternates between running on land and swimming in the water to move faster. Eventually, it lands in front of her, leaving Jenn no choice but to stab it with her spear. Unfortunately, the attack barely phases the beast, which throws her onto the sand. It strikes her again, sending her into the water. Just as the monster is about to deliver a fatal blow, a sudden thunderclap startles it, prompting the creature to retreat. Exhausted and drenched, Jenn climbs a tree and spends the night there, enduring the pouring rain. The next day, though she notices an uncomfortable wound developing on her leg, Jenn spots a raft drifting toward the shore. Inside are two people, her boyfriend Lucas and Brad's girlfriend Mia. Jenn helps them safely reach the shore, where Lucas and Mia reunite in an emotional embrace. Grateful but cautious, Jenn shares her fish and soda with them while trying to explain the presence of the monster. She urges them to leave the island using the raft and shows them the photograph with the monster's eyes in the background as proof. Jenn also shares the grim news of Brad's fate. However, Lucas and Mia remain skeptical. They dismiss her claims, believing she's hallucinating after spending so much time alone. They refuse to return to the raft, claiming that isolation nearly drove them insane. Frustrated, Jenn announces her intent to gather more food and borrows Lucas's Swiss knife. While cleaning a fish, she notices bloodstains on the blade and becomes suspicious. Jenn tries once again to convince Lucas and Mia to leave the island, but the discussion escalates into an argument. Lucas lashes out, accusing Jenn of overreacting. Later, while Lucas and Mia are preoccupied, Jenn discreetly packs her belongings and pushes the raft into the water, planning to escape on her own. Unfortunately, her friends notice her and rush to stop her. During the struggle, Jenn kicks Mia in the face, enraging her. In retaliation, Mia knocks Jenn unconscious with an oar. When Jenn regains consciousness, she finds herself tied to a tree. Lucas and Mia refuse to untie her, leaving her helpless. While Mia walks off to give Lucas some privacy, he begins venting his frustrations. He accuses Jenn of being ungrateful, reminding her of all he sacrificed for her. Lucas claims that Jenn has no home, no money, and no future without him. Jenn tries to steer the conversation away, insisting it's not the right time to discuss their relationship, but Lucas continues his tirade. He mentions his friend Zach, though he refuses to elaborate on what happened to him. Meanwhile, Mia strolls along the shore and notices pieces of fish floating in the water. Suddenly, Lucas and Jenn hear Mia scream. Lucas grabs a torch and sprints toward her, leaving Jenn alone and still tied to the tree. Lucas finds the monster attacking Mia and rushes to intervene, striking the beast with the torch. However, the creature easily swats him aside before leaping into the sea with Mia in its grasp. By the time Jenn manages to free herself from the ropes, it's too late. There's nothing left but blood in the water. The following morning, Lucas finally agrees to leave the island with Jenn using the raft. They work together to catch and cook a large supply of fish, using the last match to build a fire and prepare provisions for the journey. After packing all their belongings, they set off at last. Inside the raft, Jenn is unsettled to find numerous bloodstains. As Lucas begins rowing, he notices the creature swimming beneath them. Its sharp claws suddenly lash out, attempting to attack Lucas. He quickly dives into the raft for safety while Jenn secures the cover. The monster, however, refuses to give up. It relentlessly scratches and pounds at the raft's bottom until it manages to puncture a hole and poke its head through. Reacting quickly, Jenn kicks the creature, and Lucas fires the flare gun. His first shot misses, but the second lands directly in the monster's mouth. Using this moment of distraction, they push it back into the water with the spear. Believing the danger to be over, they relax briefly, only for the creature to strike again. It tears through the raft's base and grabs Jenn, dragging her underwater toward its lair. Struggling against its grip, Jenn remembers Lucas's dagger. She stabs the creature, forcing it to release her. However, as she surfaces, she watches in horror as Lucas dives in to save her, only to be grabbed by the monster and dragged into the abyss. Grieving and exhausted, Jenn swims back to the shore. There, she notices a faint ember still burning in the fire they thought was extinguished. Fueled by determination, she rekindles the flames until they grow strong again. She takes the notebook and writes a letter, detailing everything that has happened, in case she doesn't survive and someone finds it. Jenn devises a plan to take down the monster. She spends the day crafting multiple spears, gathering wood and leaves, and digging traps in the sand. During her preparations, she uncovers a skeleton and decides to use its bones as additional weapons. When night falls, the monster emerges from the ocean and begins prowling the jungle, drawn by the scent of fish Jenn has used as bait. As the beast approaches the trap, Jenn ignites several pyres, creating a fiery circle to trap it. She surprises the monster with a spear, stabbing it once before retreating behind a tree. The creature hunts for her, but Jenn waits for the perfect moment to attack again. When its back is turned, she drives a bone into it, but the monster quickly retaliates, knocking her down. Undeterred, Jenn keeps attacking. She stabs the monster repeatedly, even as it strikes her back, leaving her bruised and battered. At one point, the creature pins her to the ground, but Jenn stabs its arm and escapes. It grabs her legs and pulls her closer, lifting her by her face in preparation for a fatal blow. Summoning her remaining strength, Jenn drives another bone shard into the creature's previous wound, forcing it to drop her. Although it swipes at her one last time, the monster is now severely weakened, barely able to move. Taking advantage of its vulnerability, Jenn rushes to the beach and grabs more spears. The creature roars one final time before collapsing onto the sand. Jenn doesn't hesitate. She stabs it repeatedly with a spear until it finally succumbs. To ensure proof of her ordeal, Jenn uses a shard of the monster's tough shell to sever its head. With the head in tow, she begins her journey back to the raft, the burning jungle casting an ominous glow behind her. Make sure to subscribe and turn on notifications to catch more thrilling videos like this.